everyone. Welcome to another episode on the Let's Talk Wellness with Shal podcast. My name is Shalini Tyagaraja. I'm a corporate tech leader and a wellness coach. The vision of this podcast is to empower you with knowledge on holistic well being from experiences with shared practitioners around the globe and my own lived experiences. And today, we are back on a part two of a three-part series on Yoga Sutras, and I am excited to welcome Neha back on the show. So, if you have not watched part one of the previous episode where we talked about what are Yoga Sutras and we touched on a couple of Yoga Sutras, please go back and listen to that. And this is going to be a part two of the three-part series. So, hi Neha and welcome.
Hi, Shalini. Thank you so much. This is going to be a fun one, very deep
Yes,
one. Yep,
yes.
but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Thank you for
absolutely.
setting this.
I think it's really hard to condense so much about Yoga Sutras and to simplify and break it down. So thank you for kind of doing this as a three-part series, so we can just focus on specific topics. Neha is a wellness coach. She helps people create inner balance and provide personalized support to move from noise to clarity. And through yoga, breathwork, meditation, sound, and journaling, she supports healing from the inside out.
Thank you, Shalini. Yeah.
You're welcome. So here we go. So today, as part two of this series, we're going to focus on Yoga Sutras and specifically compassion and boundaries.
Mhm.
So with that, I'm going to have Neha start off with, thinking about this second part of this series will be emotional labor versus true compassion, boundaries, forgiveness, and self-awareness. So I would love for you to elaborate a bit on the two sutras that you're going to talk about today and what they actually mean.
Yep. So the two sutras that we are going to focus on in today's podcast are Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upekshanam. And I hope I'm saying these right in Sanskrit, but Maitri means friendliness. It talks about the four qualities, the four traits that a human should ideally show up with. It talks about, so Maitri is friendliness, Karuna is compassion, Mudita is joy, Upekshanam is equanimity. And these are the four qualities that can really help you to show up in the world, in your family, in your friend circle. Because identities keep evolving, situations happen in our life where we lose words. We don't know how to show up in front of people when, for example, failures happen, or somebody in your family is going through something, or because we don't have words for every situation. So how can we show up when some things just are not working out and we are having very difficult time to kind of put it into words, but we still need to show up because we live in this world. So that is this what this sutra talks about. It talks about compassion. It talks about how to set boundaries. It talks about emotional labor, because usually we associate compassion with emotional labor. We think that we have to be there for someone completely, literally put ourselves in their shoes, experience the emotions they're experiencing, think like them. Like there is so much expected out of us, like especially in terms of when we are growing up in families, like expectations just come and there is guilt if you don't help out, and there is so much emotions that keep pulling you in so many things. And it's important to operate with upekshanam, which is equanimity, and how to gain that, and how the sutra explains it very well. Then the next sutra we're going to talk about is Heyam Dukkham Anagatam, which is how to envision like a future suffering. Like if you have certain mental patterns that keep repeating in your life and you're able to have awareness of that, then you can envision how you can stop this suffering for yourself, because these mental patterns will not go away just like that. You have to work on them, and that is the abhyas that we spoke about in the last Yoga Sutra series. Abhyasa is what you continue to choose in your day-to-day situations. And in this sutra, that is what it talks about, is how you can avoid future suffering. What you can do, how is that in your control? Like it is in your control. That's what it talks about.
Wow. Yeah, looks like each of these are pretty deep. So I'm sure as we kind of break this down into some of the questions, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more. So I guess with that, I'll go into, why do we often feel drained when we are constantly showing up for others?
Yeah, so this question hit me really deep because since childhood, I don't remember any person ever told me how important it was to take care of myself. I remember that because I was the oldest child, and soon after me, 1 year later, my cousins were born, then my sibling was born. And responsibilities came very quickly that you are the older one. So, like sharing, it started with very small things like share your toys, share your clothes with your sister. Wherever I wanted to go, okay, your sister will also come with you.
Yes.
And it starts with such small things and very small, small compromises that you often start making in your day, in your small decisions to big decisions. And it kind of trains you. It's a mental pattern that's being built, not consciously because you're a child, you're not aware of it, but it starts showing up when you are showing up to school and you start giving without even realizing that you need to keep some for yourself and give what is remaining. So you don't learn those lessons, you learn it with experience. Nobody tells you that how important it is to take care of yourself. Everyone tells you how to show up for them. Everyone teaches you how to take care of others and how important it is, especially to take care of your family, and how important it is to show up for them. But nobody trains you how to show up for yourself. And that is the lesson only you have to learn. And that is a very lonely journey. And that is what the Yoga Sutras talk about so beautifully. Like it's literally a kiss to your heart if you read the book. It is it will open your eyes in so many different levels, and there will be obviously like so much to reflect back on, and those reflections can maybe be you, maybe tears may come, but be with the journey. That is abhyas, and it's not easy, but it is so worthwhile. It is so worthwhile. So this in the question that you asked, like how do you show up for yourself, like how do you build compassion for yourself, the way you can start doing that is by building consistency. Consistency is the biggest thing that yoga talks about, and it uses the word abhyas, which is practice. So you start building your practice, like, for example, have one thing like that you do for yourself every morning. Like exercise, especially because exercise helps to release blockages of energy from the body. Like sweating is a kind of detoxification. And if you don't do any exercise, any movement at all, then that in itself can lead you to places that like emotionally, mentally, in so many different ways, like things can like get sticked, like they can stick to you. And then it would be very hard to kind of make your way out of it. So exercise, like people in yoga, or I think anyone who exercises says this, like movement is medicine. So and it really is because movement changes so many things. For example, you start learning your body better. You can learn your body better when you know like which muscle of your body you're able to control, which muscle is moving very efficiently while which is not. Where do you need to focus your work on? Where do you feel like you are very like flexible versus what parts of your body you feel very tight in? And yoga, doing yoga is one of the best exercises because I've done kickboxing, Pilates, I've done cardio, but yoga somehow has hit, it has a balance of like softness, yin and yang. That's what it is. Like it's both balance of yin and yang. And that is the the most beautiful way that yoga has incorporated it. Because in 1 hour of session, you get movement, you get sweat, you get stretching, you also get meditation. Like there is no other workout I've done that incorporates all of these things so beautifully together. And when I was in this, when I realized that I needed self compassion, I remember that at that time I didn't have a consistent practice. Like I would go for practice like once a week, twice a week, but I would keep it like I was not taking it very seriously. And I was doing it just because I wanted to gain strength. I didn't have a really solid intention of why I wanted to exercise. I just wanted to gain strength, and that was my biggest one because for my reasons, like I was not very like strong that time. And then I remember that when COVID happened and everything shut down, I was literally like I was a person that kind of like stayed around people, like stayed around the noise. It was not easy for me to sit with myself. Like if I sat with myself, like there was just so much noise, like I needed to do this, and I just avoided that. So I would
Checklist.
like this. Yeah, like we all do that, right? Like if there is too much noise here, like we kind of go out
Absolutely.
and get distracted. And that's exactly what I did. But when COVID happened, the distractions were minimized. And then I was also in quarantine for 14 days when I traveled to India. So I was very, very minimized. And then I had to learn to be with myself. Like it was a journey. I remember I was just on YouTube and I was like scrolling through like some workout videos, and then I came across yoga with Adrienne, and I really liked her approach. She was very soft, and she was, I don't know, her energy was really good. So I was like, okay, let me, do this exercise for some time, and I enjoyed it. And then during the quarantine, I was just doing this exercise kind of every day. I was watching her 14-day series and I was following it along. And the best part was that it gave me a feeling of strength, it gave me a feeling of compassion. It gave me like many good feelings in that 1 hour that I had never experienced in a workout before. I was like, usually they would make me feel like exhausted or I would have like hyper energy. But yoga made me feel stable. And I was like, oh, never have I ever felt like that. And I started enjoying that process. And during this time, like being around family for 7 months and not having to and not leaving the house much, it was already a lot. So I was like, sometimes your family can also be a lot, right? Like there are conversations that you don't want to be around, but you have to sit and like kind of listen, and it's very difficult. So during this time I needed it the most, and I remember like I was like, whenever a hard situation happened, my body was not like able to, my nervous system would crash kind of instantly. Like I would feel like I've been hit with something hard, and it would be very hard for me to come out of it. That energy, just I didn't know how to release it. So I would be in that loop for very long. Like it would just keep repeating. When I came back to Boston, that's where I was living that time. When I came back to Boston that time, I was like, literally, it was so hard for me to find my center again because 7 months of living at home was a lot. And then when I came back, I just kind of needed to find that energy again to move and release all the, like, I don't know, like everything that I was holding on to. And it was not like I have a very supportive family, but sometimes, like, just things are like not said in the best way, things are not like things are lost in translation, like, and you have expectations, they have expectations, and then all the chaos happens. So I started my practice in Boston. Like there was this garden that I used to go to. It was 15 minutes from my home. And I was like, let me take help of nature because being in the room and doing this alone is not going to be easy. And luckily, I found a friend who was also interested in yoga. And then we both went to the that park together, and in the morning 7 a.m. around like a nice lake in a garden we would practice. And the first time ever heard my breath, the first time ever I realized like there was something changing in me because we were very consistent with it. We almost went every day. Even if she didn't come, I made sure I went. And that is where I started building my practice and I started learning what movement can do to your body. During this time, I wanted to go to a yoga teacher training because the impact was deep. There was something that I wanted to learn that I know that I could only do when I'm completely absorbed in that space. So I signed up and I went and I learned about self compassion in my yoga teacher training. And then, especially when I got introduced to yoga philosophy, because this is like literally your medicine for the soul, how I would call it, literally. And nobody ever like teaches you how important it is to take care of yourself, but everyone has heard this phrase that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And
Absolutely.
it stands true in every situation.
I know,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just about to quote that. But no, I think this is so important because I guess as you were talking, I was just thinking about, like my mom and just that whole generation as well, because I've heard that so much.
Yeah.
For them, the priorities were so different, right? Again, and this could just be a cultural thing too, right? But it was all about, again, family, kids, spouse, and that's kind of how your world really, revolved around, right? So you really didn't think as much about yourself, your health, what you need to do, what you need to focus on.
Yeah.
So I think I definitely saw that growing up with a lot of women. And, now I would say, even in the recent few years, I've been like pushing my mom, you have to go do strength training, like just go
Mhm.
down to a gym. But all of those things, were so new, right? Because they never had the opportunity, and that was never a thing that was okay to do or for you to
Right.
do yourself. So absolutely, I think it's so important because I know I speak to a lot of like other women groups, even at work, and some of the ERG groups. But I think it's the same question, which is, if you don't take care of yourself, then I don't think you can help somebody else, right? Because you really need to connect with yourself first. So, I mean, yeah,
Very
I
true.
totally agree. I just feel women, especially, I feel, at least from the cultural Asian background, I feel like there's a lot more work to do to push yourself and, prioritize self-care and get help.
The biggest thing is that sometimes when we prioritize self-care, like if, for example, you are in a part of a conversation and there's a conversation that your intuition is saying that you shouldn't be here, but you're being kind of like you
Forced.
want to either people please or your family expectations you want to meet or friends expect and you have to be there just because yeah like to keep your image or whatever. I don't know what that image is, but it's all gone now. But I'm like, at that time it was such a big thing for me, and I was like, I couldn't say no. Even if I wanted to be away from that conversation, I couldn't say no. And I did that to myself, and I'm like, I had the power to say no, but I just didn't know how to. Sometimes you are in loss of words, and that is the biggest thing. Like this sutra, the Maitri Karuna talks about, is Karuna is compassion, but in compassion you can choose to create distance, because distance is also a form of compassion. And you can like step out if and you can say it like, this conversation makes me uncomfortable. I need some time. You guys carry on, and we can talk about it later, like if you need me to be a part of it, because sometimes you're not even needed. Like it's a conversation between two people, but you are kept in the loop. Maybe, like I don't know, like as a guide, advice, whatever. Like, but you cannot always give advice to your parents because they're not gonna take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's important to kind of step out and
Yeah.
breathe and think from a clear space. But if you're kept in that, you're not able to say no, it's going to harm you later on. And that's a mental pattern.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that's where I know probably one of our next few questions, which will probably go into a little bit of the boundaries. But I think that's a perfect segue, I guess, into one of the, I mean, yeah, one more question before that. But what does it mean that future suffering can be avoided in our relationships and choices?
Yes. So, a lot of people say that, this thing is not in my control. This is how this person treats me. Like, I don't have any say over it. And I don't know, always, even when I was younger, I felt like, somewhere you contribute to how a relationship is shaped. So either by being a victim, either by, taking shit from others, or either by creating, sharing your opinions and having that discussion kind of a relationship, or an argumentative or a conflict based, where, it gets very uncomfortable and two people just can't be in the same room. So in every relationship, you dictate it to some level that how this is being shaped. So if you are going to keep taking shit from others and then you're going to be a victim about it, then you're not helping yourself or the other person. Either, you make your choices. That's where this question is. Like, you make your choices. And the way you do that is, there's so many relationships that have happened in my life where like family members have tried to, show that they have the power, or they are the ones that are to dictate a certain things. And like, okay, very funny situation, and I was actually laughing about this even when it happened, because I was very aware at that time. So me and my husband had just gotten married, and my family is very open minded, like, whatever, like, do your thing, and like nothing about kids or any other pressure. But someone from my husband's side of the family made this comment that, oh, when are you guys having kids? Y'all should, we just got married. It had only been like some months. And he's like, when are you going to have kids? Because if you have kids, your in-laws will be entertained. And I'm like, my kid is not going to be anyone's entertainment.
Oh my God.
Who says that? Who says that? Luckily, I was not there in the room. It happened on the phone, and my husband was answering. And
Gosh.
I know, right? Like, who says that?
Yeah.
So, and yes, you don't know like where people are coming from, what beliefs, what mindset. My
Yeah.
mother-in-law never said that, but this person had a thing to say something. So,
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, like it's so crazy. And I was like, okay, like, you need to set boundaries with certain people. And it's not like this person is like far away in distant relationship. It's pretty close in terms of relationship wise. But if someone is feeling like so nosy to make comments and like be a part of other people's business, then that's important to set boundaries and keep distance, because otherwise the relationships that you invite or you let them in, like they will shape the energy around you.
Of
So,
course.
and you can do that politely. Like you don't have, like, for example, if like luckily we don't live close by or
Mhm.
anything, if plans happen, you can very easily say like you have work, you're busy, or you don't
Yeah.
have to have that, like reaction, or you don't have to make comments and continue a conversation, because you know that you are two different people, two different beliefs, completely different. So you don't have to give, only if you react, there will be like conversation and the mental patterns start getting created. Okay, then that person won't leave my mind, and maybe I won't leave theirs. And the conversation keeps happening even after it's done. So if you don't say anything, then the only last voice this person is going to hear is theirs. Now, what they are going to do with that, it's on them. But if you have not given any of your reactions, then you have the power all to yourself. So,
That's true. So, like, where do you, I guess, this choices in the scenarios where you pick to put your energy on, right? I think
correct.
that's important. Yeah.
That is so important. And like when I was younger, like I feel like when I was reflecting, right, like there were so many instances where me and my mom got into like very different opinions and stuff, and like things were said. But if I had like just not said anything or maybe created distance, I think it would have led to a very like easy conversation. But when you are a child, you have the need to like say something back.
Of course.
And now me and my mom have a lot of fun about this, because usually when she says I have nothing to say in response, and she just gets frustrated, and then she will laugh about it. Okay, I know what you're doing.
Yep, yep, I know. It's like a rebellious teenager. And anyway, different
Yeah,
phase of
yeah,
life. Yes,
exactly.
got
So,
it. That's
yeah, so
okay. So, future suffering. All right.
you can avoid your, so this sutra, heyam dukham anagatam means in the future. So you kind of envision your conversations in the future, because usually the way you converse right now with people. So I often do this, right? Like if I'm going, even if like I have a client meeting, or even if I have a family meeting, anything, like I kind of know like what is the topic of discussion and maybe how it can go, because you can know a person after you have known
Sure.
them for a while. But also with the clients that you don't know, somewhere
Mhm.
like you start picking up on the energy and kind of read like what this person is, or like how they are going to have this conversation with you. So you kind of, I usually plan my conversations, like I have them in my head. So I'm like, when I used to have answers for like the side where I didn't want to respond to, and I would still respond because of whatever, like a younger person not knowing or wanting to talk, I don't know. But now I'm like, okay, I know where, like the difference is knowing where to speak and knowing when not to speak. And that is the biggest thing this sutra talks about, because your words cannot be taken back.
Yeah, that's
Once
true.
said, they are said. So, like, why you want to give that energy, and how you can keep it to yourself, how you show people how to treat you. Because if you are not going to respond, the next time this person is going to be very careful of what they're going to say to you.
Exactly.
Because ultimately, at the end, they're only going to hear their words. Yours are not going to come back.
Yep. Awesome. No, that's rightly said. So I think with that, I guess we're going to go a little bit into the boundaries, right? So how do we recognize when we've actually crossed our emotional boundaries? I know
Yes.
that's a loaded question, but yeah, how do we?
I think we all know it, like somewhere in our, when our intuition is so, like, it shows up in ways like you stop taking care of yourself, firstly. Like, for example, simple things like, you used to put effort in dressing up, and you start noticing that, you don't have time for it anymore, because your time is being so consumed in thinking. Like, we usually have time, but when we are in those empty spaces, our brain is talking so loudly, our thoughts are occupying that time so much that our energy is all being used there. And then, even when you have like outings and things, you will do the bare minimum, and you will not show up fully for yourself. Then you will probably not, if you are somebody that exercises on a regular basis, you find yourself, you don't have the energy to do it. you start feeling low, like, your self-respect goes down as a result of it. Because if you stop putting energy into your self-care, your energy, your respect for yourself will start going down. Like, because you are not giving yourself any time of the day. All the time you're giving is for the task either that you have to do, or like, for example, if you are a mother, you have to show up for your kids. If you are a corporate worker, you have to show up for your job. Like, anything that requires you to show up, you will. But then showing up for yourself, no one is holding you accountable for that except you. And you stop doing that. So there's no one checking up on that. And that is the biggest thing. Like, only we are accountable for our own self care. Only we are. Like, treat your self care as number one thing. When you stop doing that, that is when, like, you start losing your self respect. You start, like, if you do that consistently for, like, let's say you don't do it for a day, that's fine. Like, you made that choice because probably you were busy today. But if you start doing that regularly for months and years, then you will start seeing yourself on the other side. So it is so important to take that time. And self care is not selfish. A lot of people feel like, choosing themselves is a selfish thing to do. But no, it is not. It is the most important thing to do, because only if you treat yourself well, you will treat others well. You'll show up with empathy. You'll have compassion. You'll practice all the five things, the four things that is there in the first sutra: Maitri, which is friendliness; Karuna, which is compassion; Mudita, which is joy; and then Upekshanam, which is equanimity. You are only going to be able to do these four things if you do it for yourself.
But then, isn't there like a fine line? Like, how do you know that you're not being too selfish versus
Mhm.
just balancing that, right? I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
also one of the commonly asked questions.
Questions. So when you're being too selfish, like, how do you define selfish? Like, are you thinking about yourself more than others? Is that what you would define as selfish? Or
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Mm, yep.
So let's say, like, what would you say if you're not thinking about yourself at all?
That's true. That's also the other side, right? It's the other extreme where you're like, so, I mean, you feel like you're so unconditional in giving, but at the same time, you don't realize that that's going to hit a point where it's too much because you're just not able to do that, continuously. But I know some people also drive and get their energy from that, from just being so unconditional all the time. They think that's the coolest thing to do and they just love to thrive in that energy and that space, right? This is actually saying, oh my God, I need to go do something for myself because I just enjoy giving and being in service, right? For example, right? But I don't know. So I always feel, because I know I get this asked this question a lot. So that's why I think I'm asking this as well, which is
Yeah.
how do you draw that line between wanting to do seva, wanting to do service, right? Or wanting to be there to help. And of course, I also feel there's a line because there are certain things called responsibilities. Like
Mm.
obviously for me, for example, if I'm a mom, of course I have a responsibility to raise the kids and do all of that, right? So that's not something I can shy away from. So that
Yeah.
is a responsibility. But then
Yes.
I feel like even within that, yes, self-care is important only because, and in my life, that happened because I hit that point of burnout because I felt like it was too much and I couldn't
Yeah.
manage everything, right? So for
Yeah.
me, maybe that was a sign where I said self-care was important.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious because I know like a lot of people ask that question, right? Which is like, how do I know that I'm just, not being too selfish and saying, I'm not going to do this because I need to go to the spa, or I'm not going to do this because I need to go, do my own workout or whatever, right? So I feel like that's,
I get it. So the best way to say this is, in your calendar, when you have, just look at your calendar, right? For tomorrow, for example, you have mother duties, you have corporate duties, you have wifey duties, whatever, like, so many roles we play. Where in that calendar is any self-care stuff that you have? And make sure that that time you don't compromise with, because nobody else will check in on that except you. So when I remember I went into depression, was the biggest reason was that I didn't take care of myself for a very long time. I kept saying yes to everyone, but I didn't take care of me. And that is when your energy start depleting. So compassion, as long as it is done with awareness and boundaries and without emotional labor, it is compassion that will stay consistent. Otherwise, that compassion energy will deplete and you won't be able to stay consistent with it. Like, maybe you showed up for everyone for a year, but next year everyone's like, where is she? She's
Exactly.
now rebuilding her energies because she gave too much and
Much.
nobody will understand that. So if there's a balance, make sure on
Yeah.
your calendar there is some time you have where you check in on yourself. That's it. Very simple. Even if it's just 5 minutes. So
Yep.
5 minutes is not selfish, right? 10 minutes is not selfish. It's
Yep.
important. It's where you build your energy so you can give to others.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, I think I was just also just reframing that because I know that question comes up a lot. So
Yeah, it's very
it's
true.
awesome.
And
Yeah,
because
to
we grow up in this world where everyone tells that, self-care is selfish or, doing too much for yourself is not good, like you have to keep doing service. But where
exactly.
does the energy for service come from?
Yep.
It comes from within. So I have to build that energy, right? Like, isn't
Yep.
that's the most sense it makes, right? So people have lost that understanding. It's because everyone has been following the crowd. Like my parents told me this, their parents told. But if you read books and especially if you deep dive into like people who are successful, they have all taken time to understand themselves and they have become successful because they have learned how to use their energies. And that's the journey every person has to take.
Perfect. I think with that, we're probably good on time or maybe exceeded it a tad bit.
Oh,
But
really? Oh, wow.
so we've already spent over 30 minutes, but I think this is the power of Yoga Sutras because there's so much that we want to cover and there's so much we want to talk about. But this is awesome. So thank you, Neha, for doing this. And to the audience, there is another part three to this where we'll talk about two other sutras on two other topics that we will go deep dive into. So before we sign off, Neha, anything else you want to share with the audience, where they can find you? Anything else coming up you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a big event coming up at the end of this month. It's like a wellness retreat, and it's going to be a very special one, putting a lot of effort into prepping for it. We're going to
Nice.
have sound, we're going to have cacao, we're going to have journaling, meditation, restorative yoga. So it's a mini wellness retreat. And
Okay.
if you are looking to be a part of something like that, reach out to my on Instagram at Soul Lumos, or also you can email me neha@soullumos.com or check my website soullumos.com and you can reach out to me there. And Instagram, I share yoga flows. I share about Yoga Sutras, and you can follow me there for learning about that and staying updated with the philosophy side of yoga and also physical side. I do share about that a little bit too, and I share meditations on YouTube, so you can look those at Soul Lumos Yoga.
Thank you so much, Neha, for sharing and joining us today on this journey of Yoga Sutras. And we will continue this on our last part of series three next week. So thank
Perfect.
you.
Thank you, Shalini.
Thanks,
Bye.
Neha. Thank you. Bye bye.